can we, okay, I just want, recording in progress. I wanted to start the
All right.
meeting. And you have some comments right now, Bill?
I don't, well,
Or do you want to
in due
wait till?
course, when it comes on, are we now on this item?
No, sir. That's later on in the agenda. I just brought that up because we were talking about how to share it on the screen. So, okay, we're here. A roll call will reveal that all members are here. Myself and Kyle and Patty, Bill Apple and Liz, and Julian Battaglia has joined us, which is really great.
I just want to say that I'm babysitting and my baby is asleep. And as soon as she wakes up, I will be exiting.
Okay, and we'll try to be quiet in the meantime. All right.
No, you don't have to worry about that.
All right.
We won't shout.
Okay. So that takes care of the roll call where everybody is present. The minutes in the last meeting, I sent those out. If you had a chance to read them, does anybody have any corrections to the minutes from last week?
Move they be adopted.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding the adoption? Seeing no discussion, let's vote on the motion. All in favor to adopt the minutes, say aye or hold your hand up. All right. The minutes are adopted. Now, the first thing I've got other than that on the agenda, and something I think that is pretty important for us because it falls within one of our tasks, is the takeaway from the town halls. You'll recall that when we listed the tasks, we had a Bill of Rights, we had the preamble, and we had measuring, figuring out how to measure and measuring what the citizenry was satisfied with in their county government and what they were not satisfied with and what they would like to see changed in the charter. And I think we decided that a good vehicle for that, a good first vehicle for that for us would be the town halls. So I think probably all of us maybe were at the town halls at one point or another. And so I would be interested, and I think it is important for us to do this, to talk to each other about our takeaways from that. What did we need to end up with a ranking, I think, some kind of ranking of what the public seemed to be. And this, by the way, this will just be temporary because it's just 2 town halls. We've got to come up with other devices to measure the pulse of the community. But what we need to do now, I think, is rank from those town halls and from other sources that we have encountered up to this point, rank what the community seems to be most interested in us changing, amending in the charter. And so who would like to start?
I'm getting my notes up here from the town halls. Just
Bob, I'm happy to go ahead. And
all right, Liz.
I think like all of us, we were really delighted to see the number of people who joined.
Yes.
A Friday night and then a sunny Saturday afternoon. We had such a great turnout both times. And
Yes.
the level of engagement and the well-articulated interest on issues. I was really blown away. I was like, that was such a valuable input.
I think they were well conducted too, the town halls.
Yes.
I do. I think we listened to people and everybody got to say what they needed to say as far as I can tell. All right. That was an overall comment about them. Kyle?
I think overall I was actually sort of disappointed in turnout.
Okay.
I think in the days of COVID and the fact that people didn't have to travel on a Friday night and leave their home plans or family, I kind of hope there would be some more people. I did get some feedback that if we do it again, the times could be even more still thought out to benefit the working folks, which I happen to agree with.
So how would we do that? What
Maybe a week,
times?
maybe not a Friday when people are sort of done with their work week.
Mhm.
And you can't plan for the weather, of course, but some kind of weeknight opportunity. And
When
I'm
people
not
still have
sure.
energy.
Well, and there isn't something cross-scheduled, and that's you're always gonna miss some part of the population with that. So, two of the same was really handy. But what I wanted to say the most, I think, and I don't know how to fix this, but in general, in fairness, I did not listen to Friday, and I haven't seen it posted yet. I felt like on Saturday there's fair alignment, and that's always good. I just worry that, that doesn't represent, those are folks that wanted to be heard, that knew that something was going on, but maybe doesn't represent the kind of not the rank and file, but more people who have some other, maybe not another topic, but something else to say about some of the things we're working on. I'm sure we're all getting some kind of back comments about, well, you can't do that because it'll cost the county too much money, or you can't do that because people won't vote for it. I'm hearing that stuff, and I'd love to hear from those people verbally in session. And in Justice and Equity yesterday, we talked about, we're seeing a lot of the same faces, maybe, and that's not a bad thing, but we're
No.
not seeing faces of color. We're not, there weren't really very many youth represented. They're missing sectors of our population that I'd like to strategize some if we do another one on how to bring more of that in. So that's
Okay.
all I'll say about that.
Okay, I think that's an important observation. So it sounds like what we're doing now is we're getting a general impression of how the town halls went and whether the information gathering was sufficient. I would like to do another, so let's continue with that. And when we're through with that, I'd like to do another go around where we talk about what you thought the most important issue was, and the second most important issue, et cetera. Patty, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a comment about what Kyle was talking about. There
Uh-huh.
were a lot of people on Friday, like 75 or so that showed up. So it was more than Saturday. But there were an awful lot of people who were just observing, who didn't
Yes.
say a thing. We didn't get the feedback from the people who were there. They were a lot of the people who were there. And then later I had my friends and acquaintances ask me how it went. They didn't come. So I like your idea about getting people like more of the Hispanic community if possible, and youth out there. They don't pay attention to these things. We tried. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how we can get more participation from people who aren't necessarily interested in the issues that were brought up.
So
That's my big-
folks, do we feel like the reason it wasn't 200 or 300 or something like that is the fact that it was conducted on Zoom? Does that make for more attendees or fewer attendees? Are people freaked out by, oh, I've never been on Zoom, I don't know how to do it? Or is it more convenient for them to sit at home in their jammies and talk to us, than come to the,
Bob,
yeah,
Bob,
Liz.
I think anything we say there, we're going to be guessing. And
Yeah.
I agree with your earlier agenda of let's see where we are in terms of priorities, what we heard from the community.
What we did find.
Okay, Bill, what did you think?
Well, I had the feeling, first thing is that the last round of the CRC, the major issues are structural, whether we would have 3 or 6 council members. And that was a very hot issue. We don't have a hot issue now. We have a smoldering issue, and it was certainly running through both meetings, and it had to do with the environment.
Yes. Mhm.
And
thought.
I would say that was the one constant this time that was never even mentioned 10 years ago, which I think is interesting in itself. The problem we have is, and we've certainly bumped up against Randy a few times, is that what we could do with the charter is not what we wish we could do with the charter.
Wow, that's true.
And so I do have some ideas on that, but it's my fear is no matter what we do, we're going to come out disappointing people because we can't do all of the things that most of the town hall people had in mind. the elected versus appointed was I thought pretty straightforward, and it didn't sound as though they wanted to make major changes. Again, the issue isn't structural; it's philosophical and I think technical to the extent we can do it, but we're limited. Uh, I think there's a lot of hope expressed, and I'm coming to the feeling that we may want to stay closer to the people and look for people with not just ideas about what the end result is going to be, because everybody has that, but how to go about it, how to make it work. And I'm thinking in this respect that we could, if we move too fast and rush to this November, come up with a package that doesn't pass. And I'm thinking about how the vote count works, how there will be more voters next year, which is when it could be voted on. In other words, if we really spend some time on this into December to do a better job, because our Constitution really, for what the people want, is lousy. But we need a way to reach through to it in some indirect form to do what it is we want to do. This is going to take some time.
Bill, you've referred to it a few times. Are you talking about specifically preamble or Bill of Rights, any of our it or?
I think, for instance, Kyle, looking at the preamble, we can really say anything we want because it's aspirational.
Sure, right.
I think, however, I think it reads somewhat like a cooking recipe because it's got everything possible thrown in. And I'm thinking what we really need to say is use some phrases that people will remember. The charter right now, its preamble is only 24 words long. And as a person who's been working for the last 6 years on a novel, what I've learned is shorten, make it punchy, make it direct, and make it extremely communicative. The problem with something that we're writing, and the charter, the whole charter is an example of that, is people put in, like the old days, Fibber McGee's Closet, which always had was a radio program, and when the door opened, you heard this immense, long crashing sound. We've got to make it so people join us in what we are trying to do. And the only way you can do that is, short of Madison Avenue, is to make it short, punchy, and use language that everybody gets.
I don't want to get ahead of the game here, Bill, but in talking about the preamble before we get there specifically, I mean, breaking it down, but the ones that we're proposing, like my proposal has only got 3 sentences.
The reason I'm doing this is because we had a lot of people before us on those 2 nights, and they all have a sense of what they want. What we have not done, and it crystallizes in the preamble, is boil it down. What are these people really telling us? There are words for this that had to be invented as civilization became more crowded, to reflect the kind of sadness that comes over the human race and communities when they have changed beyond the time that they shared the feeling when they formed it. And it's called solastalgia. The word came into existence in the 1970s when people looked around and saw what was happening. And that's what I heard for 2 nights. And the question is, one, how do you answer that? And because that's our job. It's to answer it in spirit, in the preamble, and in practice, in the structuring.
All right.
I think, for instance, to be able to tell these people, we're going to put somebody in here whose sole job is the environment, the place we live, the reason we live here, that person is going to have that responsibility. I think that has to be our response. I think the Spanish-speaking community also has to be involved. I've been always concerned about that, because that is the group that ends up being undereducated and with the least job prospects in this area. You see them only on menial jobs. You don't see them doing anything else, which means their children are being crimped too. It's a serious problem because we've got a ton of talent in this community and we're not using it. We're not benefiting from it, and it's unhappy. And
Go ahead.
It's dangerous.
My problem with the environmental advocate, and I don't mean I have a problem with us having one, by golly, we sure need one, is to try and get that person. This is my personal view, and there may be obviously disagreements, but my personal view, job there, what I would be looking for is to get that person as much authority and power as possible without running afoul of the many things that Randy's going to point out. And we've got our state statutes, which we can't run afoul of. So we have to keep within our what we can do with charter building. And I would like to see that person be as powerful as possible. I made a suggestion earlier on that I think is going to, fall on its face because it was too much. But yeah, Liz, there you go.
So, Bill, I had a question for you. I was really tuning into something you said earlier, and I would like you just to expand on your thinking, if you would, about the difference between putting something together for the November ballot, but then the language you used around why we would wait sounded like a more fundamental shift to the Constitution than we can get done in this time. Did I hear you correctly?
Well, I'll put it this way. First place, I think the voter turnout next year will be higher than the voter turnout this year. And that is more likely for us to get the votes that we need to get a charter passed. We had a big year last year, and a lot of I haven't counted, but a lot of the elections have to have a certain percentage of people who showed up at the last election. You want to make sure you reach the quota of voters. But the second thing is more important to me. I'm all for aspiration, but putting the aspiration into a machine that runs is quite a different thing. And saying it doesn't do it. And I'm frankly concerned because Randy has given us an opinion which I do not think answers Bob's question. And I don't want to be told 2 degrees off course where to go or what I can't do. I need a direct answer. Can we make the county follow the comprehensive plan? That question was not answered. And so when we get to these issues, I know we're the front end of this thing, and we're the kind of the headlights, and we put into words what we want to have happen. But making it happen is tough, and it may take more time. And I want to be sure we have the votes. I'm looking long term here because I absolutely want to make this work. I don't want to have this be the light that failed.
And Bill, I think that's when Kyle was saying, when you say, I want to make this work or it work, can you specifically put a subject in there?
Yes. Let me tell you what I have in mind, and you'll see. The county, what we are trying to do with these rights of nature is to reach out and use the county's police power. Anytime you give the rights to nature, you penalize someone else. As I said in my memo, it's a zero-sum game. You're telling people what they cannot do to the Salish Sea. At the same time, you're telling the Salish Sea, you have rights, this will not happen to you. The reason it won't happen to you is somebody is being prevented. Now, when you enact a law that prevents people from acting, you're using what's called the police power. The state otherwise has no power to take your hand off whatever you have it on. It's the power to move your hand forcibly if necessary. Now, and that's actually what we're talking about. and the Sailor Sea and protecting nature. We're saying, get your hands off that. And in order to do that, you have to invoke what's called the police power. And there are two sources in our law, not in Florida's law, not in Pennsylvania's law, where everybody figures the answer is easy. It is for them. They have a different constitution. But we do have some tools. And what for example, would like after we get into the Declaration of Rights, which is what in my mind, I'm focusing on, is putting in a mechanism to have whatever the county does about the environment reach through to its fundamental power. Believe it or not, the law is full of magic incantations. And one is that if you invoke, if a county invokes special constitutional power, it has to say so. That is what we put in the jet ski ordinance. And if you read the jet ski ordinance case, you will see that they saw the signal that the county gave, saying we are reaching back, all the way back through Article 11, Section 11 of the state constitution, under which county and city police powers are based. They can be moved around by the state, which is what Randy's concerned about. But what I want to do, frankly, is to reach around Randy. And the only way I can think of doing this is to build something in that effectively puts languages in our ordinance that Randy doesn't usually do. No prosecutor normally does. That's what I have in mind. And I realize we're straying, but the difference, what we're really talking about here is the difference between the preface, which is aspirational, and reality, which is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, and Bill, I totally get the distinction between the preface, the preamble, and so the whereases versus the therefores, very distinct. And you want to have therefores, you want the mechanism to be strong enough that it can reach back to laws and be backed by laws that then have to be enforced because the county council has to abide by the charter.
And that would be
and Bill, I'm just looking to clarify because I really want to understand what you're saying. So am I on track there or did I miss something?
No, you're fine. This is the difference between where we declare the rights, because the question is the preamble. I think we can say what we want in the preamble, and I'm not too concerned, but I'd sure like to have people humming it down the street.
Right.
But if we don't get to that level of poesy, we get to the next step where we declare rights. Now, when you declare rights, they either are the preamble or you're creating rights. There is no in between. You either make it or you don't.
Got it. So you're in favor of creating the rights for the protection of nature. You just want to make sure that we do it in a way that we not only go around we're going around a lot of things to get it done. And that's your overarching concern about how we can do this well.
You see, the Declaration.
Yes or no to that, Bill, just if I could keep clarifying.
Well, the Declaration of Rights isn't actually going to create rights because we don't have the power to create rights in the charter, but we do have the power to set out the pathway that gets followed automatically by every county ordinance, which has the effect, I think, of expanding what the council can do.
Okay.
Because all legislative acts come from the council. They don't come to us. We're not actually a legislator. We're framing a government, but framing a government doesn't create rights. It only creates a mechanism. The county council fills in those rights by enacting ordinances. And I want, when the county council does that, I want the county council to reach back into its ultimate power so that we don't get the lawsuits from the CAPR.
So we don't get successful lawsuits. We're still going to get lawsuits. I think no matter what we say, that people are going to want to not go along with this idea. But fortunately, we will have had the authority of the people behind us because they would have voted in favor of our charter amendments. So that's a plus, but it doesn't mean the thing's not going to get struck down if it's not structured right. So I totally agree with you, Bill, about having power there. Patty.
Yeah, I'm just saying Bill is saying something really strong, because if there is a way that the county can go around, I mean, the argument against the Bill of Rights and our being able to do what we want to do is that, oh, the state already does that. And the federal government has rules about that, and they take precedence over what we do. So we have to be careful. I think Bill is saying, let's take some time and make this perfect, besides the fact that we'll have more people to vote next year than this year. And so I kind of agree with him there. And yes, if we can do the language that will stand up to any suits, because the language is in there and it is strong enough. I was wondering about the jet ski, because yeah, there are other laws out there, and San Juan County is the only one that's got this jet ski ordinance that is enforced. It's yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that it, Patty?
It's fine.
You have more? Okay. I just wanted to say that parenthetically, I wanted to toss out a couple of more issues that I heard in the town hall, because I'm not really getting that. You all want to, I've gotten, this is what I thought of the town hall overall. And let's talk about the Bill of Rights, okay, which is very, very valid. But I just wanted to toss out that there were a couple of other things that I heard, and we need to decide whether or not, we think that those are issues that we ought to be dealing with, or that one of the committees ought to be dealing with, or that they already are dealing with. One of them is ranked choice voting. Okay, I heard many people say, oh, and I'm also in favor of, and then they didn't talk about it much, but they tossed out that they were in favor of ranked choice voting. And the other one was this build out analysis. Okay, worrying about the future of the islands and what they were going to look like with, at some point in the future, what our capacity is to and where we need to blow the whistle. I think that's basically what the build out analysis is, and a number of people raised that also. So my question to you all is, those two, and there are probably others that you all noticed, but those two, are they worthy of the efforts of are they worthy and appropriate for the Charter Commission to take on? Kyle.
The Charter Commission or this committee?
I'm sorry, the Charter Review Commission. No, no, overall, the Charter Review Commission, and then we can talk about this committee. But mostly I'm talking about the Charter Review Commission. They could be in some other committee.
Yeah, I think those both do. I think they fall in other committees. What I wanted to say or repeat what was in the chat, I think for our process, and some of this is justice and equity, and there's some balance between us working on the craft on that committee and then figuring that into the Bill of Rights in the preamble. We did hear from people about young people, youth, and multi-generational families. That would be reasonable to address, maybe more in a Bill of Rights, at least, to include those words as differentiated from all the adults that were speaking. And I heard another theme, only slightly, but that, and I'm all for rights of nature, and excited to work on that. But there still is a fairly elaborate other grouping to, and this doesn't capture it all, but race, color, gender,
oh yes,
and all of those things. So.
Kyle, my response to what you just said is that I feel like the Bill of Rights ought to be part 1, part 2. Okay, part 1 maybe ought to get rid of the first issue that most Bill of Rights traditionally have dealt with, which is the rights of human beings. Okay, and then I think part 2 ought to be the rights of nature. I think that would be a good way to structure that. We can't leave the first part out, for goodness sakes. Human beings are important also.
But in terms of themes, that's something I heard from people during the town halls.
Okay, great, thank you.
I want to make a suggestion here. I've been mentally, I guess we all have been mentally drafting the Bill of Rights. and I've been thinking about having two sections. One would be the rights of people, and the other would be the rights of nature.
Sure.
Well, now the reason we need a section on the rights of nature, and the way I hope to structure this is because nature is our economy. And I want to reach through to the other side and say, look, guys, if we mess up the economy, we mess you up, we mess everything up. So let's get our priorities straight. And that's where the charter has to reflect those priorities, not just in the preamble, which but and actually saying, these are the rights and they are necessary to protect our economy, because the charter has to talk to money people. And we all live by that. We can say we don't, but we do. Most of the people who are careful of nature and feel that we ought to shut down have independent resources. They could be on Social Security or money coming from off island. They don't have the incentive that 90% of the rest of us do, where we simply have to have a local cash income. And we want to make that clear that everybody, because of our civilization, counts on it. Let's not kid ourselves. But the people who will sue, I don't want them to kid themselves either. So I want to straight arm this thing and say, it's in the interests of money that we do this. And I think at that point, you reach out and encircle your enemy. That's my thought. And so we do it in two sections, two lists of rights. But the rights of nature are based on the rights of the economy, because we know if anything happens to nature, it happens to our economy.
Does everyone agree that this Bill of Rights needs to be divided into those two sections? Any disagreement about that? Because if there's not, we can say that we've accomplished that much so far. Yeah, Liz.
I think it was Alexandra in the town hall meeting who, I think it was her, I could be wrong about that, who brought up to the part of the goal language wise and heart space, head space wise, is changing that separation between that we are somehow separate from nature.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that if we do this as two parts, then that reinforces an old paradigm versus contributing towards the shift that needs to occur going forward.
Liz, can we do it in two parts and then explain what you just said, that although for purposes of arranging this in our brains, this is useful, but we are really talking about one universe. We are part of nature, and of course, nature is part of us. You take away, I guess nature could survive without us, but we couldn't survive without nature, right? And
right,
so,
and I respect what Bill is saying towards speaking and embracing our quote unquote enemy, to wrap our arms around them, to, my thinking always is you're killing the golden goose. So
That's right.
And so helping people who are more focused on the economy understand that we have common ground, because if we kill the golden goose, if we kill off the orca, if we, the eagles, tear down the trees, then you have killed the golden goose.
magic words, Liz. Those are going to be magic words.
That's
Killing the golden goose.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point.
We had some hands, Patty.
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, yeah, and then Bill, and then Kyle.
Let's we finished with this. Do you think we could get the preamble together?
I think so, but let's Kyle had his hand up.
Just to the point about, does it need to be two pieces? I don't know if anyone read Julian's attachment from Asheville, North Carolina. That preamble, and I'm not suggesting we need to do this, but that's 6 points. I mean, it doesn't have to be two.
Right.
They differentiate the rights of humans. They differentiate the rights of those people to, fair and open, accessible government. It's more nuanced, and rights of nature in there. So
let's leave the question open for now. It's kind of like we were leaning in that direction, but we're hearing reasons why it shouldn't be. that way. All right. We have down at the bottom of our agenda, we have public comment, which is where Julianne's going to get to take off or mute and take at least 10 minutes to tell us, what her reactions are to all of this. And I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, shall we move to this? Yes.
Well, if Julian affects in the interest, since we're a small group, to accommodate her grandchild, if we can let her speak, as soon as she comes back on. The baby may have already woken up, but just to
Sure.
accommodate that.
This agenda is written in ink, not stone. So yeah, did everybody agree that that might be a good idea to have her come in now? So
Yeah,
I
I
was going to say the same thing. If she's
maybe,
there, I'd love to hear from her now, as
and
opposed
then
to
if
not
she,
hearing at all.
how about we have 5 minutes from her now and reserve 5 minutes for her right before she leaves.
Baby's awake.
Julianne,
That's okay.
I don't know whether you heard us, but we were talking
I did. I
about,
heard all of that. Thank you.
okay.
I actually was coming on more to listen today than to say something, but I
Mhm.
feel like I want to say that I really appreciate the depth of thought that Bill has, the way that he's thinking about this, the way that he's thinking about reaching into the Constitution and finding those places where we can make the Constitution match up to the powers that we want to give ourselves, so that we can make those connections, and taking the time, because he's right, our state constitution isn't as open-ended in giving us those rights as other constitutions like Pennsylvania, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that's a huge obstacle to this idea. So I just want to, just really appreciate Bill's depth of thought around that.
Good.
And anyway, yeah, I was just really, I'm just listening in. I didn't have anything more to say. And I'm going to be turning the video off and just listening for the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
So, thank you all.
If you decide you want to comment at some
Okay.
point, turn yourself back on, wave your
Okay.
hand. We'll get you in. Otherwise,
All
it'll
right.
just be the 5 of us. Okay. And
Well,
but
I'll
you're
be
gonna
listening.
You're
Yeah,
gonna be listening.
yeah.
So we better watch what
Okay.
we're saying. Okay.
And look
Does
at that.
anybody have anything they want to ask me?
I just am enjoying that beautiful little life in your lap.
Look at that.
Yes.
All right, bye.
Okay. Okay. Let's work on the preamble, folks. And Kyle is going to put up the preamble. What we have to work with is a suggestion that I made some time back that I amended after these town halls. I amended it yesterday and sent you all the amendments, and it's got some red in there, and you can see what's been added and subtracted from my original proposal. And we also have a proposal from Bill, which is in many ways similar to my proposal. So we're kind of starting off in the right place. Let me tell you, let me first ask the group. I discussed this with Kyle when he was the first one on. Would it be a good idea? Kyle thought it doesn't. You don't really need to do it, but would it be a good idea for me to hand the gavel to another person since I am making this proposal, and so I'm not seen as trying to dominate the conversation or anything like that. I don't want that. That's the last thing in the world I want. I'd rather take a match and light this suggestion I've got on fire than to have that happen. Bill.
First, I think we're a small enough group not to have to worry about that. And second, I think by the time we let it loose with a full CRC, you can bet they'll chew it up. So I think we can relax.
Okay. Okay.
Let's just do the best. And I have to say, speaking for myself, I'm in favor of just about anything because I recognize that it's a starting point, even what we come out with.
Right.
Patty, you had a comment on that.
I just want to be clear. Do we have both? Is the one in the bottom Bill's?
I believe it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know we can't manipulate that, so we're looking at them.
It's going to have to be Kyle, right?
Bob
Yeah.
or Kyle, if you're doing that, would you zoom in? I'm not able to read that unless I just enlarge the print.
And
I will do my best.
Well,
yes.
we don't have to read the first sentence, which is strike all in the preamble section of the charter, replacing it with the following. So you can raise that if that helps, Kyle.
I'm
And
getting a
give-
refill. Be right
give some
back.
more. Okay, Bill's getting a refill.
Bill's got the right idea, and I want to take a nap like the little gal or guy. That's great.
Okay, well,
I-
let me say
Yeah,
something about
Thank
this.
you, thank you, Kyle. You can go down a little bit from that so it fits on the screen. There you go, perfect.
Raise it
I
up.
can see it at that point. Can everybody else see it? And
Yeah,
then
but-
scroll up some.
Part of it.
Scroll
I've got a
down,
bunch of stuff on
scroll
the bottom.
Yeah, he can scroll up and down now, but
Okay.
But-
Let me just say that go ahead, Patty.
I don't see Bill's here, and I don't think I read that.
Okay,
I'm
well, it's right
wanting-
below.
Right, but
It's-
it's not
he-
there
he-
on my screen.
Right,
and
it's not, okay, go ahead.
I'm wanting to see that just because I think he's probably saying it in shorter language. So, I mean, and that's where I'm coming from, is to say it as briefly and most beautifully,
So,
but as possible. And I guess I didn't read it, so I don't know. There we are. It's there and there. See how much shorter that is? And I haven't read it to compare it.
okay, well, I think you'll
But
find that the first couple
my
of sentences
gut-
are identical.
Okay, yes,
Uh,
let's compare them.
There's some differences in, yeah, it does appear to be shorter. So do you want to just
Oh,
skip
yeah.
over mine and look at this, or do you want to look at mine first?
I
or-
want to look at them both and I don't see
All right.
how I can.
Okay,
well, how about if
What?
one of us reads one out loud and then somebody will read the other one out loud, and then let's start with one.
okay,
of-
why don't I read the preamble that I'm suggesting, and we can have Bill read the preamble that he's suggesting. But before we do that, let me just say a word about it. What I've devised here is a preamble of only 3 sentences, and they each handle a specific area. The first one talks about the home rule charter and what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we came up with a home rule charter, because we want to have as much self-determination as possible. The second one talks about people and what their rights ought to be protected, or what categories of people we ought to later construct rights for. And it's not limited. It says, as you'll see. And the third one is talking about the rights of nature and what the place is there. And that's really the kind of revolutionary part of the design, because you'd expect and see the first 2 sentences, probably in years gone by, and many of them. So I'll read this thing to you, and then we can discuss it and then go on to Bill's. It reads, "We, the people of San Juan County, Washington, create and establish this home rule charter in order to maximize the democratic nature of our local government, bringing home and securing to ourselves the blessings of self-determination. It is our intent that all persons residing or otherwise found in our county shall be equal under the law and shall be afforded the equal protection of those laws, regardless of race, color, age, gender identification, sexual orientation, religious preference, national origin, immigration status, or other obvious or arbitrary classification." I'm sure I missed some classifications that ought to be in there. I just don't know what they are. "We recognize the rights of nature and further recognize our sacred duty to ourselves, to our children and their children, and to nature itself, to protect the soul enriching beauty and sustaining plenty of our natural environment, making individual initiative and government action principal tools to protect that environment from any ill effects of the enterprises and activities of human beings." Okay?
Can we now see Bill's so I
Sure.
can have it
Yeah.
in my head?
Sure. Could we put that up? Okay. And
Okay.
Bill, why don't you read that for us?
Okay, and I might add, I made it as much like Bob's as I could, because I think it's important we get into sync on this thing as fast as possible.
Yeah.
We, the people of San Juan County, Washington, create and establish this home rule charter in order to optimize the democratic nature of our local government, securing to ourselves the blessings of self-determination. It is our intent that all persons within our county shall be equally under the law, regardless of race, color, age, gender identification, sexual orientation, secular or religious preference, national origin, immigration status, or other arbitrary classification. We further recognize our sacred duty to protect the soul enriching beauty and designate government and cooperative collection or a cooperative collective action to maintain each living part thereof as a functioning component or sustaining natural system. I might add, I made the change about cooperative collective action so that it wasn't as though we were going to say that anybody can do anything they wanted in response to what somebody else was doing. I didn't want to make it too much of a self-help thing. I think this could be shortened and improved, but I was hanging on to Bob's because that way I'd get half another vote.
I'll tell you this, either one of these is acceptable to me. Patty?
Well, there's one thing when you say all persons within our county shall be equally under
Should
the
be
law.
equal, shouldn't it?
That's
Yeah.
equal or equally represented, but it's not equally under the law.
That's the one change I would recommend too.
I think it would be equal. Yeah.
Okay, so discussion. Kyle?
Mr. Chair, is it your goal to sort of bless and finalize this today?
I think it'd be a good idea unless people want to, consider it more and talk about it more. These aren't necessarily the only formulations for the preamble. They're the only ones before us now because no one suggested anything else. But if anybody wants time to come up with a different suggestion, we can put this off. Or if B, they just want time to look at these two suggestions and consider it more, we can put it off. Or C, we can vote on it now. I mean, I have no problem with that, but what do people want to do? What does the committee want to do? Today?
Firstly, I would like more time with it.
Mhm.
And going back to what Bill was saying, we're looking for something that people whistle down the street, and I don't think we're there yet.
No.
So,
Okay.
So I would like more time with this, and I appreciate a solid starting point that you two have provided. So I would like to wordsmith this some and take it to some of my friends who are also excellent wordsmithers and bring you back something for our next meeting, or actually try and get it to you before we meet next time.
Patty?
I'm just saying that sounds great.
Yeah.
Kyle? What do you think, Kyle?
I like them both, actually. I do
do
like
too.
shorter, and I do like, a friend said a really interesting thing the other night on the beach. They were just traveling in BC, and the city of Nelson, BC had something very similar that was plastered all over town. It was essentially a statement of values, which is essentially this. And so the only thing I'd like to delay for is maybe just to look through some other ones now that
Yeah.
I have a better sense of what you guys are after. And maybe just one more week. I do want to take the base language back to justice and equity, and just that the section where everything following regardless of, and just let somebody like Jane and Sharon kind of add or subtract there. Is that okay?
Well, yeah, I would think so. Well, Bill, so far we have, other than you and I, we have the other three members all want to put this off till next week. So I think that's what we're going to be doing. I think Bill and I have come up with what our suggestions are, and maybe let me ask the rest of you all to do this. Either A, find a different preamble that you think works, or B, work around one or both of the ones that we have before us. And then if you think you have something concrete, or even a list of ABC suggestions of what to do with these, if you could send those to me, or send them to the entire committee, that would be okay. You have my permission to not go through the thing that the other committees are saying you've got to go through the chairman and all that. I am fine with any one of you sending your suggestions to everybody, so that before the next meeting, we are all well armed. We have some idea of what we want to do. And we have as our goal to come out of there next week with at least this preamble nailed down. Does that sound doable? We don't want to work
Yeah.
forever on the preamble. Bill.
Bob, I'd like to ask Kyle to come up with a draft. I don't have a sense, Kyle, of exactly what you're thinking, and I'd like to see it. The other thing is, my feeling is, other than my accession to Bob in order to gain half a vote, I would remove all the race, color, gender identification, sexual. You know, it's a long list. It would mean anything, and I would add something about our children being our future. And I noticed that was brought up in a town hall.
Yeah, and I did add that to the preamble about recognizing our sacred duty to ourselves, to our children, and their children, and to nature itself.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about, Bill? Something like that? Patty.
I just wanted to say, if you have a list, and it's been told to us that anytime you list something, things that are outside that list, even
That's
if
right.
you end it with and anything
Right.
outside, you're going to get away with.
What's
get
that
away
called,
with
Bill?
not
Ab
having a
inclusio,
list.
ex exclusio, something like that.
Yeah, so
Principle.
I agree with Bill that maybe we don't need to itemize everything we're thinking about because it's impossible to. And then somebody will come up and say, well, that's not covered.
Well, you can say all persons
Yeah, I mean,
here,
all
equal
persons.
protection of the laws, you know?
Yeah, whatever. But I do agree that maybe we don't have to list everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, because in the future, there's going to be something more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you want to
Yep.
stay away from lists.
I hope each person who comes up with something will share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So we all get it, and then we can respond to it with a different draft. And at that point, we will in effect be doing some drafting outside the meeting because the meetings are pretty short.
I'll say this, if it would move things along, I who drafted this first one would certainly be willing to vote for bills, you know, to get this going along. I feel like we have to get this accomplished. I was hoping it was going to be today, but next week is fine. I mean, everybody, you guys came up with good reasons to want to take a look at it. And so can we do that? I went away.
We're still
there.
there.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're there.
We see
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay. I pushed the off button accidentally. It's located in a bad place in my computer. Anyway, so are we resolved to do that? Put this off till next week. Everybody comes up with either changes to one of these two documents or a document of their
Sure.
proposed document of their own, and shares that with everybody else prior to the meeting. So we can all have thought about it, with the goal of emerging from the next meeting with a preamble we have adopted and are ready to send to the full commission. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, good deal. Okay, now, so let's move on to the next item, which was the last meeting we had decided that what we needed to do was discuss names of persons to speak to us regarding the Bill of Rights, specifically as the Bill of Rights would deal with the rights of nature. And what I'm asking you all to do is suggest names of people we can bring before us to talk about that specific thing. Or if you think that this is not necessary, tell us all that it's not necessary. I'm starting off with where we were last week, and we said last week, let's have some people who know what they're talking about address us about this issue. Besides the very informed people we have on the committee already. Anybody have any thoughts? Kyle.
I didn't find the name. I'm going to look while we're talking, but one of, now I forget who sent it, but it's one of the many listed, I think it's one of the UN lists maybe, and I think it was Pender Island, BC. I like the idea. Maybe it has less impact on this committee, but I like the thinking of kind of the holistic Salish Sea. And when it comes to process and, you know, preamble and values, I'd like to find who maybe had the, you know, was the writer, the author, or the sort of the approver of their Bill of Rights, just to, you know, have somebody external talk to us. And there's all a number of different people, but somebody.
Do you want to work on that, Kyle? Trying to find that person?
Yeah, I'm going to try and find the name before the meeting's over,
Yeah,
but
because-
I'd be happy to reach out.
Because we have the blessing, the odd curse of COVID, of course, but the blessing of being able to have anybody in our meetings that was willing to sign on. You know, they don't have to travel here to join us in person.
I want David Suzuki to call us from Vancouver, but I don't think that's going to happen.
So Kyle is working on that. Are there other people that you all think ought to speak with us? I mean, there are some obvious people that have spoken with us. Julianne, for instance, is an obvious person who has spoken with us and told us how she and a whole lot of other people feel. We have representation on this committee. Liz, for instance, is on the San Juan. I mean the Lopez
Transition.
San Juan Community Rights. I'm trying to come up with. Yeah, Liz.
So I was going to ask the group's thoughts on, is there value in having Randy come speak to us to, you know, help us preempt him if we, is there value in that? And I may be directing this more towards Bill.
Yeah, I was going to ask Bill, what do you think of that? Would there be, are we giving away too much by doing that?
There are a couple of things. Randy is a friend of mine, and we have a back channel, but I'm careful not to use it. We, as individual lawyers, help each other out and going over things, but I don't want to abuse it. I think if we use Randy for anything, I think we should be careful to do it through Kevin and follow the procedures. I think that I would rather do it this way. I would rather just say where we want to get to it, that the decisions of the people and engrossed in the adopted comprehensive plan shall bind the county. Now, the good news is, you see, is that when the plan is adopted, it becomes a legislative act. I just don't want the county to worm loose of it. And then let Randy ask the question directly.
Okay.
First, I think we ought to say what we mean, because otherwise it's just words floating around. But I think it may be, we might be able to sneak it in the rights of people, the right to assist in the plan. And when the plan is adopted, the county is bound to protect the rights of the people in accordance with the plan. Incidentally, it also protects the rights of nature. There's a lot about that in the charter, in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
You know, making the comprehensive plan mandatory takes such a huge step toward genuine democracy. You know, and I'm talking about, we're not really set up. The U.S., this country isn't really set up as a democracy. It's set up as a republic. You know, we don't make town hall decisions here very much. There are parts of the country where we do that, but having the people actually chime in, you know, that's really really a plus.
One thing we have to remember is the comprehensive plan really is not put together by the people. And anybody who has tried to insert sections in, and I know that several people have, in great and close detail, have proposed changes to it and had it rejected by the Planning Commission, by staff, and by the council. So there's no question that the council controls it. The people can have input, but it's not a document adopted by the people. But once the council adopts it, we want it to stick.
Liz.
And Bill, I do think we saw the people speak in the way they voted and who they voted in as their council people, and what they will, the changes they'll make to the comp plan, and listening to the people. So I think I see the comp plan as much more springing up from the people. And yes, the county council members did toss things out fairly arbitrary for many of our perspectives. I stayed involved with that through many, many meetings. And so, and I did want to mention that Lindsay, the attorney, that, he might be available to come speak to our group. We want to be respectful of his time and how we use him, but he did express availability if that would be helpful.
What do you think of that, Bill?
He and I have stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And he put me in touch with somebody at UBC on the environmental thing. We've been trading, Lindsay and I have been trading stuff back and forth, useful to both of us. It would be interesting to see what he thinks now. You've all seen the memorandum I did. He said he doesn't quite agree with it. I'm not quite sure what the difference is. And I don't want to make it an argument between lawyers. I guess the question is, if we have questions, we have to be careful what we ask of him, because Randy is our real lawyer. My suggestion would be that individuals could reach out to him, or he could come here. I think if we're going to have an outside lawyer come into our group, we should get at least Kevin's permission.
That's that.
Yeah.
And also that includes, of course, Randy, an inside lawyer. We couldn't proceed with inviting Randy without going through Kevin. That is already set up. That's where.
If we think that Lindsay would be useful, I'm for it.
Kyle.
I wonder, I appreciate the conversation, and I certainly don't want to try and get anything around Randy or past him, but that is not a goal at all. But I do like the idea that we committed early on to try and be out of the box a little bit. And, some of the other people we're going to hear from are successful because they're challenging some widely held notions. And Bill made the point a couple times ago, I think, that, I don't want to risk my creative thought here by being told no too many times, when it's really less the law and more how Randy's interpreted for the county for weeks, months, and years.
Okay, Kyle, I want to respond to that, but Patty had her hand up first.
I was just going to say, when we've had lawyers talk to us in different areas, they always say, I'm not giving legal advice, and that sort of protects it all, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think the idea is that Randy, when we get sued, when the commission, when the county gets sued for what it has put into its charter, he will be defending us, from what I understand. He'll be defense counsel. So we have the blessing of him telling us ahead of time, I can't defend this. This is a big problem. If they bring this up, we're going to lose. So don't put that in there. I mean, that's the idea. But I also agree with Kyle, that he may say that, but he could be wrong. We could be the first ones that push the envelope in a certain direction that isn't allowed right now, that a judge says, you know what, you guys are right. We're going to change, because, most law is not statutory. Most law is case law. So, we could get the blessings of a good judge. So I agree with Kyle that we should not be totally bound. Overall, wise idea to listen to Randy, but let's lead with our hearts too. Okay.
Liz had her hand up.
Liz.
I wanted to echo what Kyle said. And from my limited perspective, Randy is behind the ball and defending old thinking versus being willing. And I know he's in a very tough position, and his job is to protect. But I think we have to, this point in history dictates that we must act courageously, and to let Randy dictate what courageously looks like at this point in history, I'm not in favor of that. I think we need to find better ways to empower ourselves to self-govern and protect the environment and place we live.
Thank you, Liz. Kyle's got his hand up, but Patty, did you have your hand up first?
No, I think Kyle did.
Okay, Kyle.
What does the group think about trying to reach out, and I'd be willing to do this, to the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund or somebody like that who has representation in the Northwest, who's already working on, you know, some of these different leading edge sort of maybe
Wow.
notion challenging. I don't have any experience with them, but I think a lot of the work that they do is paid for already in other donations. I'm not sure how it works, but I'd love to talk to them and have somebody on the line for us to coach
No.
us on how to dream.
I think that's a very interesting idea. However, I don't know because I'm kind of a rookie around here. Maybe Bill knows, being around for as long as he's been around. The role, Randy's role. Okay, we put together a very progressive Bill of Rights, for instance. Let's say that, and it pushes the envelope past where some people are going to be. It gets passed. But some people are really irritated about it. They sue us, and we have gone, well, whether or not we've gone past what Randy has said is okay. Well, let's say we have gone past it. And Randy says, you went past what I told you to do. It's tough for me to defend. How do we get do they come in amicus? Bill, how do we get this other group to come in and defend us when Randy's right there?
Patty's next, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Patty.
keep that conversation. I'm actually, I remember from the town hall that somebody put it quite well, and I took notes about how our county can be, you know, because we are forward thinking and an example for others. And that sort of came from earlier conversations where we were saying, hey, let's think outside the box and see about things. And then later on, it becomes a model for future thinking for other counties. So I was just trying to find that in my notes here, but you guys go ahead.
Are we saying that we accept the possibility of a lawsuit, or we should accept that possibility and not try to avoid it at all costs? Bill.
There are ways to word it that won't bring the lawsuit. The lawsuit wouldn't be about us, but there are two things. First, the reason we would want Lindsay is not because he's going to tell us the law. That's Randy's job. But lawyers do think differently. I have to say, when I went to law school, I thought my head was being bent like a cucumber. It is a different way of thinking. And what we would be asking of Lindsay is to think that way. It isn't a question of the laws. Just as Bob said, we need to get out of the box. And one of the ways to be out of the box and in it at the same time, which is my intention, is to be able to make all kinds of outrageous demands and then say, to the full extent of the law. Now, that means that you end up, what happens is it's the county council that does or does not go beyond the law, but we're not, because we're only doing it to the full extent of the law. No judge can complain about that. Mm-hmm. The usual CAPR people may, but they're going to be bounced. I think there's a lot we can do.
Okay, Liz.
And Bill, would our great grandchildren feel we had done enough if we do to the extent of the law as it's written today?
What you usually do is to say, you refer to the law as now or hereafter amended. And you know, basically it's an invitation to the state to expand the power, because the legislature can expand the county's power. The legislature can pass laws directly that enhance our natural benefits. It has the power, the county doesn't. But to the extent that the county has that power,
Patty.
get it.
Oh, no. I'm really respecting what Bill says, and I just wanted to comment, throw it in here when I was reading all of that information that you sent. Oh my God, I'm glad I didn't go to law school.
It was the wonderful event of my life. I'll tell you what, my brain just went, ah, and it changed my life. But anyway, here we are.
I want to note
Yes,
that
Liz.
Julianne put over in the chat, CELDF would support us in a lawsuit. The Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund may have been our support for the last 3 years. And then also just to be aware of time, and we wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Julianne wanted to make a final
Julianne.
comments, our last 5 minutes. So
Right.
we've got about 3 minutes as a group and then to public comment.
Okay, so here's where we are. From what I understand, what we've accomplished is a discussion about the preamble, and we have set as a goal to end the meeting next week with a preamble, a proposed preamble adopted and thereafter sent to Kyle and the full commission for its consideration. That will be an accomplishment. We have also talked about coming up with, this is kind of what we said last week, but now we're saying it again. We have come up with some names, and so some folks are looking into those, and then continue to think about that. If there's any other folks that you can come up with. I have looked at lots of these bills of rights. A couple of them that really looked good and prominent failed. I mean, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, as you may know, was challenged in court and struck down. And the proponents were going to challenge that and decided not to. So it's gone. The one in, was it North Carolina? It didn't have enough signatures. It was short, 47 signatures for the initiative, something like that. So, there are examples that we can use. I think we also got to the place where generally the idea of 2 parts is sort of right, but then there was a lot of sentiment that said, no, we need to express the unity between human beings and nature. And when you put it in 2 parts, maybe that takes away from that. So we got to figure that one out too. And yeah, Bill.
Just want to say quickly, when we have speakers come, we have to be careful. I see Julian's recommendation of Kai Hushby, but I think you have to remember that people who work for environmental organizations are people who are pushing an agenda, which is good, but they love test cases, and we're it. And so you have to be careful about somebody whose basic job is to get other people to do things. We need to do this right. It's surgery. You want the patient to recover. You want to save the whole thing. What you don't want is to lose a lawsuit because somebody talked you into it, whose job was talking people into it. So I'm cautious, but let's hear what they have to say.
Good observation. Let me ask the whole group to think about this for next week. Are we willing to be a test case? Is that to be shunned and avoided at all costs, or is it to be welcomed, or somewhere in between? Think about that, and we'll talk about that next week. If there are no other comments, because we're digging into Julian's time, I'd like to turn the last 5 minutes over to her. Okay. All right, Julian.
All right, you guys are stellar. So my suggestion about Kai Hushka wasn't, Kyle had a mention of, like, if we go forward with this, who can we, ask these difficult questions of? And that's Kyle and Lindsay. They've been helping people write these throughout the whole country. They're behind Ecuador's Bill of Rights. They're behind New Zealand's Bill of Rights. They're behind, like, they are the organization that is promoting rights of nature and community rights throughout the country and the world. They actually write the stuff. So they are available as a resource. And yes, Bill is exactly right. their job is to get us on board to push this envelope, because it is pushing the envelope. And yes, you have to decide whether we should push the envelope and have, but San Juan County is the type of county that could potentially push this envelope because of the liberal base of residents that we have here. It is definitely possible that we could be the one to push the envelope. And the fact that the state is now trying to pass this sort of almost like a little Bill of Rights right now about the environment means that in a way the state is supportive of this. There is a stream through the state that is wanting some of this to happen. And so there's that, even though there are these obstacles in how it all is structured, like how Bill points it out, you know, it's like we don't have free reign, but yet the movement is happening anyway. And so I just wanted to say that they are available as a resource for you, CellDef. Like they actually take the cases, they take on the cases of the communities that they've been working with, and they've been working with us for 3 years. So like in Grant Township in Pennsylvania, they've won now 3 cases, and now there's like another case. And this is the way it is. You're waiting for the shift of the judiciary to start to see it differently. Like in Ecuador, they changed their whole constitution to give Pachamama rights, like that the earth mama of their indigenous world has a right to thrive, survive, thrive, and regenerate its life cycles. It's in their constitution of their country. It took about 4 or 5 years for judges to catch on to the fact that the Constitution had been changed. Like at first, they still judged and went with the corporations that were defying the earth, you know, that were destroying the earth. But then all of a sudden, one judge went and said, "Oh, wait a minute, we have to go along with the Constitution." And then all of a sudden, all the new judges beyond that went with keeping in line with their Constitution. So that is part of the play. That's the play of this type of democracy. So you guys are all great at asking all the right questions, and I just am so thankful.
Thank you.
And my baby's crying. I gotta go.
Okay, bye. Yeah, Bill.
We are cursed with a highly extractionist constitution. And I think that if you have Lindsay here, he will tell you the same thing. We don't have the flexibility that existed in Pennsylvania and in countries whose constitutions can be changed often by the dictator running them. This is a hard job here, and frankly, we have to be devious, which is my profession, and so I'm comfortable with it. But it's going to be a tough shot. We will not be sued. It will be the county who does something pursuant to this language. We will not be in a lawsuit.
Let me ask a question before we sign off. And this question arises out of my own personal ignorance and the relatively short amount of time, 7 years, that I have lived here. If I am asked by someone at some point, what are you all trying to cure with the Bill of Rights? What aren't we doing with our present structures? Specifically, what are the events that are occurring that are bad here in San Juan County? What are the complaints that have been lodged that you're trying to cure? Probably most of you know the answer to that, but I would be hard pressed to answer that. Would be very interested to hear what those things are, because I know I'm going to be asked that question eventually, and I don't want to go ask this guy over here. So yeah, Liz.
I think a short answer would be the degradation of our natural world.
Yeah, but I'm talking about specific examples of we want to avoid what you're talking about.
We don't have enough time here, and I noticed that Kyle did have his hand up a moment ago.
Okay, so, Kyle.
But worthy conversation.
I think I think I'm good. That's a nice dive off if we had another half an hour. We're working on whole organism because so much of what
course.
we do is very, it's fractional.
Uh-huh.
It's me getting my needs met. And it's, to Bill's point, it's zero sum. I got to reach into somebody else's to get mine. When you address life like that day by day and month by month, you don't pull back and look at the whole organism, and the organism is changing, and it needs and it's more than nature, but it needs representation and stewardship. That's how I
Yeah.
would say.
No,
Thank you, Kyle. We're at 12 noon. I like to
I want
have
to,
meetings end when they're supposed to. What? We have another.
Oh.
Yes, Liz.
I just want to honor Julianne's last comment here. She says the Southern resident on death row, the salmon on death row, and then the oil tanker increase of 800%. She didn't have a time frame for
Yeah.
that. So
Those are good things for
we
me
can,
to
yes, there's
put
a
into my
very
brain.
clear list that also includes what's happening to our water.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Liz. Bill?
we're taking little bites. Each of us finds a cause and does something, but it's cumulative. It's a question of how many people are willing to pay the extra money to drive an EV. And what we need to do, for instance, is remind people that the money they save on driving in a gas car by buying a gas car because it's cheaper, that money has been extracted from nature and must be repaid. And it's the repayments that are not happening. And that's why we don't have the money and the people.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Kyle, you're muted.
Thank you. Where did we go, Mr. Chair, with the comp plan? Is that going to be tabled for next month or next week again? It's more.
Well, we don't have time to discuss it further, but we did talk about it here.
Are we bringing Randy in? Was that one of the invites?
I think that we talked about bringing Randy in for that purpose, and then that would have to go through Kyle. How does the group feel? Does the group want me to request of our chairman, the big chair, that Randy be come here and talk about his memo, his response? Yeah, Bill.
I think we need to give him a case in point because his answer was lengthy and indirect. It said what we can't do. I'd rather go ahead and say that the county is bound and he needs to tell us why we can't. Because somehow the question didn't seem to get to him. And so the answer didn't seem to come back. I think we ought to say that to the extent that people have made this choice and the council has ratified it, the county has to be bound by the action.
Let me go back and review his response too, Bill. As the other attorney, I don't think I know that I can look at it more closely than I have, and so we will table the question of whether or not there should be an invitation to him, but it will be on our agenda next week, and we will try to make some decisions. So all of you who can pick that thing up and give it a look and formulate an opinion about it. We're talking about Randy's memo regarding this. Please do that and take a look. The other thing I would ask everyone to do would be to think about various bills of rights that are out there, the ones in Pennsylvania and other places, even the ones that have failed, and see if there is one that you think would be appropriate to serve as a model, or that we could pluck sections out of, because we got to start thinking about that. And that means bringing words before us to discuss whether they're appropriate, kind of like we did today. Yeah, Bill.
One quick warning. You'll see a lot of declarations of rights that are really preambles.
Yeah.
They are aspirational. I think this is something we have to pay attention to so we're not led astray.
Yeah. We probably also don't need a 30-page Bill of Rights, but just my opinion.
We're going to have a Bill of Rights.
Yeah. Okay, folks, if there's nothing else, shall we pull the plug? And next week then. It's great. I really love this committee, and it's really great working with all of you. I like having everybody be in the room a little bit smarter than me. I learn something every time. Bye-bye.
Hey,
Bye,
stop the
all.
recording. Stop the
Okay.
recording.
We are adjourning.